Welcome, guys. This is episode 5 of Around the Globe Baseball, and I have Dale Scott, a former MLB umpire, here with me today. Could you please introduce yourself?
Well, I think you just did. This is I'm Dale Scott, 32-year major league umpire. Spent 5 years in the minor leagues, 37 years total, and retired before the 2018 season.
Nice. I really appreciate your time doing this. You have one of the coolest stories I've seen out of umpires. I like how you still have great involvement in baseball even after retiring from the game. So, my first question for you is, what got you into umpiring?
Well, I growing up in Eugene, Oregon, huge baseball fan. Loved baseball. My grandfather, my mom's dad lived in L.A. He was a Dodger fan, so I was a Dodger fan. Why not? This was before there was no Mariners at the time, and so I was pretty much convinced I was going to be the first baseman for the Dodgers when I got older. The problem was I actually started playing baseball, and I wasn't very good at it. As I like to say, I couldn't hit, run, field, or throw, but I still enjoyed the game. So I played a few years, not very well. Going into high school, when I was 15, going into my sophomore year, it was either varsity or JV, and I wasn't anywhere close to any of that. So, when you're 15, how do you stay involved in the game? I could coach, I guess, but I, wasn't really cut out for that. But a friend of mine suggested umpiring. He had umpired the summer before, and he said it was a good way to, make some money and stay involved. And I, all my career as a player, spent a lot of time on the bench, so I watched the umpires quite a bit. So I thought, you know what, this that sounds kind of interesting, so I'll give it a shot. So that's how I started umpiring. I was 15 in Eugene, sophomore, and I loved it. Quite frankly, it was something that just really checked all the boxes for me, and I continued on. In fact, I started refereeing football and basketball also my junior and senior year, and but baseball was the thing that I really enjoyed and progressed at. When a couple of years of college, got associate science degree in television broadcasting. I was working at a radio station in Eugene, and another friend of mine had suggested umpire school, and that was the only way to get into professional umpiring. But it's like he said, you're pretty good at umpiring. You obviously enjoy it. I think that you would love to go to umpire school. The atmosphere, the things that you learn. It's a 5 week, pretty intensive 5 week school. And, after it's over, you can come back to Eugene, you could start working college baseball. You got that on your resume and move up baseball wise. Of course, there's always a shot that you may get a job in professional baseball. You may get a job in the minor leagues. And so I knew that going in. And obviously I would, pursue that if that happened. But really, I was just going to soak in umpire school to become better and to go back to Eugene and start college baseball. As it turns out, I I finished fifth, the top five in our smaller school. There was two other schools that year. Went to the 1 week advanced school, so I just barely made that. But that was the beginning of what turned out to be a 37-year career.
Yeah, it's really awesome just turning your love of sport, just finding a way, turning it into a career. Were there any umpires that you kind of met along the way through these schools that you saw come up to the majors with you as well?
Well, there was a few guys in my class. Mike Winters, eventually got in the National League. I knew Gary Darling. He had gone to umpire school the year before me, but he, also went to the National League. And then some other guys in my class, not the specific class I was in, but the year that I went. Tim Cheetah, Angel Hernandez were both in that class of '81. A long time ago. So, but yeah, so and of course, once you got into professional baseball, once you got into the minor leagues, I met a ton of guys on my journey trying to get to the big league. So it was really getting out of umpire school, getting over that speed bump into the top, to the 1 week advanced school, to the top, basically at that time, top 50 of the students that year out of the three schools, approximately 200 students, give or take. The top 50 went to this advanced school. Only the top 13 of that 50 were guaranteed minor league jobs and were assigned minor league spring training. And I was in that top 13. They didn't tell us where we ranked in that top 13, but I got one of the spots. So, just getting out of umpire school, getting into the advanced school, and then getting a job. Those are huge hurdles to get over because so many more don't. Basically, trying to. So that was a big accomplishment. Once you get in the minor leagues, though, it's the slate is clean again, and now you're trying to get to every level, working your way up to AAA. And unlike a player, an umpire has to work at every level. He can't go from A ball to AAA. He can't go from AA to the big leagues like a player can. If he's outstanding in the minor leagues, boom, they put him on the roster. An umpire has to work at every level at some point, and so that's a grind right there because the pay isn't great. It's gotten much better now. I mean, they're actually unionized now, and they have some working conditions that are much better than what we had. But the only reason you're in the minor leagues is to get to the big leagues. It's not a job that you strive to get to and then make a career out of it. You're trying to make your way up to AAA to get observed by the major league scouts, umpire supervisors. But so many don't get to that level. Either they are released or they quit. They're in their 20s. They're starting a family. You're not making much money. You're on the road all the time. The lifestyle just isn't meshing with their goals, a family life and stuff. So there's a lot of different reasons why guys will drop out on that journey. But if you do make it to AAA now, it's again another clean slate because now you have the big league supervisors checking you out and hopefully get a shot from there. So it's there's a lot of steps. There's a lot of places where it may not work out. Very few numbers. The numbers game is very few openings. Usually this year there was unusual. There were 10 in the big leagues, but that's not normal. So there's just a lot of things there that make it pretty eventful if you make it all the way.
Gotcha. And speaking on like kind of connecting with umpires from being in the umpire school all the way to the MLB, were there any players that you kind of umpired while they were in the minor leagues? And then as you moved up to the major leagues, did you ever umpire them again?
Oh, sure. I in the Northwest League, my first 1981 in Walla Walla, the town so nice they named it twice. That was a Padres affiliate, and Tony Gwynn was playing in Walla Walla. And in fact, the next year when I was in the California League, he was playing briefly in Reno on his way up, obviously, to the big leagues. But yeah, there's a lot of players that you will have in the minor leagues that eventually you may see in the big leagues, either as a player or as a coach or manager or all three. The longer you're there. So yeah, you may have a history with somebody. I may have a big argument with a manager or a player in the big leagues, but there might have been a history. We might have known each other, and I've worked this guy for the last 4 or 5 years in the minor leagues, or off and on. So yeah, it's the baseball, professional baseball. It's the umpires, the players, coaches, managers, whatever. But it is a fraternity, so to speak, because it's a enclosed kind of set type thing. And even though the players and the umpires always say, wow, they're always at each other or whatever, but there is a bond there a little bit also, just the fact that you've had the opportunity and to be able to be on a professional baseball field and working in this business is it's pretty much a blessing for everybody. So you understand that, but you both have jobs to do, and sometimes they conflict.
And going through the minor leagues, did you like tend to feel the change that some players feel when you go up the levels from single A through triple A, especially hitting the majors? Did you feel any type of change that gets faster pace, or oh my gosh, like these pitches are coming faster at me, the catchers can frame better? Was there any feeling like that?
Yeah, I mean the most noticeable difference for me, it was from A ball to double A. When you get into double A, the big league teams usually have two or at that time 2 or 3 A ball teams. I'm talking about short A and long A. It's a little bit different now, but they have more than one team in the A ball level. Once you get a double A, everybody has just one team, one affiliate. And that means you're weeding out a lot of players to get to that double A level. And similar with umpires. And the thing that I noticed immediately when I was promoted to double A in the Texas League in 1983 is that the game was just faster. There were faster runners, faster pitchers, and much more skilled pitchers. They were around the plate a lot more than in A ball. They were making plays that weren't necessarily made in A ball. Everything was just quicker. The game was faster. It was played more crisper, and I noticed that right away. The next noticeable jump basically is AAA to the big leagues, and a lot of that is not necessarily the speed of the game, although that is part of it, and the skill of the game, obviously that is part of it. But it's a whole different atmosphere as an umpire, media wise, and the all the things that you don't really have to deal with in AAA that you have to deal with at a major league level, and that's a learning experience also, which isn't necessarily ball strikes safe out. It's dealing with the everyday pressures of being in a fishbowl and having everything covered by two different home and away broadcasts, maybe a national broadcast, radio broadcast. You have all kinds of print. You have photographer. I mean, it's just a different arena that you're walking into versus AAA.
Was there ever a time while you were umpiring that did you ever, I mean, experience a difficulty or something and had a second thought about umpiring, or did you just always know that that's what you were born to do?
Well, I enjoyed it. The thing about officiating in general and umpiring is, you go out every day and work. Now it's the same game that you just had last night. It'll be the same game you're working next week, but you never know what's going to happen. You never know. I could walk out there and have a perfect game or a no hitter, or I could walk out there and have a 19 inning, 14-13 slugfest. You walk out there and see two triple plays, which happened to me one day in Fenway Park. You could walk out there and see a guy jack 4 home runs. I mean, you just don't know what's going to happen every time you walk on the field, even though you're playing the same exact game that you played last night, as far as rules and two teams and a field, and the same exact game you're going to play tomorrow. So that challenge of meeting whatever challenges are coming your way, whatever plays, situations, arguments, beanballs, rain situation. I mean, you just don't know what's going to happen, and that to me was it's not for everybody, but that for me just you get yourself ready mentally, physically to do the job, but you still don't know what's going to happen, and you still don't know, and whatever happens, you're the guy that's got to deal with it, you and your partner. So that I enjoyed that. There were times in the minor leagues, sure, that I had a horrible game, or you're a little bit homesick. You've been on the road for 4 months, yet haven't even I lived in Oregon. I'm in the Texas League, going after a night game in Midland to gets over at 10:30. My partner and I are in the car at 11 o'clock, and we're driving the next 10-11 hours to Jackson, Mississippi, or wherever the heck we're going to get there early in the morning. Hope your hotel room isn't occupied, so you can get into the room and sleep a little bit, and then on the way to the ballpark you grab a burger, and then, guess what, you're back on the field. And nobody really cares what kind of day you had. You have to get pitches and plays right. So, it's a challenge. It's a lifestyle. But again, Tyler, when I was doing that, I was 23, 24 years old. I mean, I was on a journey. I was on a experience. It was. I look at it now, and somebody said, "Hey, hey Dale, at your age now, you have to go work in the Texas League." I don't think I could do that. But at that time, you're just happy to be on the journey and see what's going on. But you have doubts sometimes, sure. When you're having a tough time, you're maybe just had a horrible game, or guys are all over you and stuff, and you haven't been home, and you're kind of homesick, and it's 100 degrees out, and it's humid, and you're thinking, what am I doing? Why am I here? But those were far and few between.
Does weather ever get to you? Like, have you ever umpired a very hot 100-degree type game where weather gets to you? Because I've seen that in referees. It's usually for the other reason, like cold, they kind of freeze up and you can tell everything's slower pace. Has anything like that ever happened to you?
Well, yeah, there was 2 times in the big leagues, once in Boston and once in Kansas City. I almost went down. I mean, it was just hot, 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 humid, no breeze. I remember the trainer coming out and saying, "You okay?" And I said, "I don't know." And between innings, and they gave me an ammonia towel that they, soaked in this ammonia solution, which is it's just amazing how it refurbishes you. And of course, drinking liquids and Pedialyte, Gatorade, water, just trying to stay hydrated. But yeah, it gets hot. It gets hot and it gets humid, and especially when you're working the plate with all that equipment on, I'm not going to say unbearable, but it's certainly you have to be prepared for it. When I was in a city that it was good, I had the plate the next day, and it's it's going to be hot and humid. Maybe it's a day game. I would start hydrating, the day before. Basically, I just make sure that I kept up on my liquids just to prepare for that onslaught on your body. I mean, there were times that, and I'm a sweater anyway, so there were times that it was so hot and humid and, behind the plate that my ball bag was actually damp. I couldn't keep the balls dry because I was sweating so much. So but that's all again part of that. And again, in the minor leagues, I was young and stuff. Now, in my last few years in the big leagues, I was in my 50s, and you just have to not only mentally but physically prepare for that when you know you're going to have that ahead of you, a hot streak, or going into cities that are hot and humid, because that's again part of the job is dealing with that.
Yeah, more about being in a different city or different ballpark. Did you have a preferred ballpark to umpire in, whether that's just you could see better with the batter's eye coming in, or just kind of the fan experience in general?
Well, in the big leagues, for the most part, every batter's eye is pretty good. That's they have it set up so you can see that. It's not always the case. I remember in Texas, now they're on a new stadium, but not the stadium they just got out of, but the one before that, back early in my career. During the batter's eye wasn't that great. It was bleachers, but they wouldn't put people in there. But when Nolan Ryan pitched, they put people in there because their walk up ticket sales was so good that they could fill that up. Well, that's tough because you have white shirts, you have people moving around. It's tough for both teams. It's just to pick up the ball for the pitcher and everything, and that could be tough. Fenway Park used to, I don't know if they still do, but they like a day game. They would usually block out part of that center field bleacher area for the batter's eye, but not always. Sometimes they would have people there. And again, your background, when it's hot, sunny, people wear white a lot, white shirts, and you have a lot of white shirts. That's tough duty trying to pick the ball up. But for the most part, most of the stadiums have a good batter's eye. You can see the ball, relatively well. Sometimes it's tough to see it on the bases. Milwaukee, during a day game, they have glass as part of their, even when the dome's, when the roof's shut, and you have a day game depending on what time of year. Summer's a little bit different than late fall or early spring or whatever, but you had a tough time seeing the ball, especially at third base coming off the bat, just because of the glare and the way that it was set up. So there's challenges there, and it's not just me; it's the fielders too. And the old Metrodome, it was tough to see the ball up in the air, blend in with the roof. Tampa now is like arena baseball. You got rings everywhere. You got, all kinds of other things that you have to deal with. So each stadium has its unique ground rules, unique things that you have to take into account when you're working there. But and there's some just absolutely gorgeous ballparks too. I think Pittsburgh is one of the most beautiful parks in MLB, but there's a lot of them. There's a lot of good parks, and so yeah, it's just fun to be able to experience all that. I was fortunate in my career, starting in '86 in the big leagues. I saw a lot of old parks going into new parks. Saw a lot of new stadiums throughout the country. So I was fortunate that way.
Yeah, you mentioned a very good point with Tampa and things like the rings. Were there any weird calls you had to make, or kind of what's the weirdest call you had to make, whether that's just from the game in general or just the dimensions of the stadium?
Well, as far as ground rules, Tampa, I've had, you know, fly balls that never came down. You got hung up on a ring or something. We when we go into Tampa, I tell the crew when the ball's, usually, the ball's hit in the air, it's somebody's the covering umpire. Balls out in the outfield. It depends on how many runners are on and blah, blah, blah. But I tell everybody, hey guys, we got to keep eyes on the ball. And especially before we even had replay, because sometimes the covering official doesn't have the best look or best angle as far as if it hit a ring or a speaker or something up there. So we had to be aware of that. The old Kingdome in right field, and also you have a little bit of that in Baltimore right now, and that's the only two I can think of at this point. But down in the right field corner, there's a little enclave, so to speak, that a fair ball can get back in there, where you actually lose the fielder for a second. He's but the ball's in play, and a lot of times, again. Maybe the first base umpire has jurisdiction, but that enclave he can't see. So, we tell the second base umpire, keep your eyes peeled just to make sure, what's happening with the baseball in that corner. So there's, special unique ground rules. At Fenway Park, we completely alter our rotation and how we cover fly balls because of the monster. Normally we'd have a second base umpire maybe go out to something to left center. But if we do that, a lot of times at Fenway, you can have it off the wall and have a play at second. I mean, or even ends up just being a single because it's played right. So if the second base umpire goes out, that means the third base umpire is coming over to cover. And he may not get there in time if it's one of those types of plays. So we have the third base umpire cover more of the outfield in Fenway to keep the second base umpire there. So little quirks like that in our rotations, depending on the ground rules and the stadium.
You mentioned replay, how when you umpired back then, there was no replay. And now, as we see baseball, it's very heavily on replay. You see the managers a lot of the time saying, like, check the replay, check the replay. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, from going from no replay to replay?
Well, when we first started replay, it was just what we called boundary calls. And it was basically from foul pole to foul pole. Was it a home run? Was it spectator interference? Was it a ground rule double? And that made total sense because I always thought how ridiculous it was when you would have a ball hit out in left center field and there was hands. Did the spectator touch it? Was it a home run, or did he, take the ball into the stands? You have one shot at it in real time. Who knows, what kind of, again, white shirts or distractions are out there. Who knows where the shadows or the glare of the sun or anything at that particular moment. Plus you have an umpire that's making that call, hundreds of feet away, and makes the call. Yeah, I got spectator interference, and both dugouts have their monitors up their tunnel, so they can see what happened. The people in the stands can see what's happening. They wouldn't show it on the big screen at that time, but the monitors throughout the stadium, they can see what's happening. Everybody at home watching can see what's happening. Yet the four guys that have to make the decision, what do you got? I thought he touched it. That's a spectator interference. What do you got? I think it was a home run. What do you got? I couldn't see it. Okay. All right, let's go with home run. Why not? I mean, it was ridiculous that the four guys that have to make the call are the four people in the universe that haven't seen this on replay. So boundary call replays made sense, and I was glad to see them happening. But we also knew that was going to open Pandora's box, and eventually replay would be seep into everything else, which it has. My thoughts on it. For the most part, I'm very happy with replay. And the reason I say that is no umpire wants to miss a call, miss a play. That's against everything in our being. But that being said, sometimes it happens. Okay. And so if you go to replay, if I call a guy out at second and he was actually safe, we go to replay, we overturn it, he's safe. Guess what? A lot of times it's not even mentioned when they're showing the highlights of the game or something. That guy eventually scores. I called him out. Thank goodness replay got it right. So, I'm not happy I missed the call, but I am happy I'm not the conversation for the next couple days or weeks or months or years, depending on how big the play is. So people just want plays to be called correctly. And even though we may look bad doing it by missing it and having to go to replay and have it overturned, the bottom line is it got called correctly, and that's what people want. And that's it's a blow to us personally because we don't like to miss plays. But the bottom line is it's a better system. We're pretty good, but we're not 7 different angles and super slow motion and high definition good. We got one shot at it, and we're pretty good at that. But when you start throwing in technology, we're never going to outrun technology. So it aids us to make the game better, I think.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see how the game's just changing. First off with replay, and now things such as pitch clock and the base size increasing. I wanted your personal opinion on those multiple new rules, including, I should say, adjusting the shift because they didn't totally ban it. They adjusted it a little bit. There's now pitch clock and the bases are larger. What are your thoughts on those 3 new changes to change and speed up the game?
Well, and another one, don't forget the disengaged by the pitcher, which is, I think, probably the one is going to be discussed more than any of the other ones once the season gets going. Baseball had a pacing problem, and it also had evolved with analytics and everything with shifts. That in the last few years, it seems like it was just a home run strikeout game, basically. A lot less action, hardly any steal attempts compared to just years before. Small ball was almost I'm not going to say eliminated, but you just didn't see a lot of hit and runs. You didn't see a lot of bunt the guy to the next base or that type of stuff. It just was home runs and strikeouts basically. Well, that's kind of boring, quite frankly. And the pace was lagging. People, there's a lot of entertainment out there, right? There's a lot of people, especially younger fans, that they want to cultivate. Baseball wants to cultivate. That all they do is they're on this thing all the time. Their attention span isn't that long. So when you have, baseball is a beautiful game if you understand the chess to it, the strategies to it, this and that and this and that. But if you're a casual fan and you don't really understand all of that, it can be boring. It can seem long. Nothing's happening, it seems like. So there was a pace problem, and what baseball wanted to do is get the pace going, get more action, get infielders moving and runners moving and things happening to catch people's attention, frankly. And that's the way it used to be, before before analytics kind of changed the way the game is managed and played. So that's exactly what these are doing. The larger bases, the disengagement, they're trying to stimulate more steal attempts. The shift ban, or at least the shift ban on infielders, is to, a lot of times with the shift, let's say a left-handed hitter, which seems to be most of the time, not only are you taking away what used to be base hits because you have an extra field over there, but the shift also has a guy right behind second base. A lot of times those singles up the middle now are being fielded. And so again, that's not a lot of action. There's not people on base. There's not things happening. And so that's the reason for that. The pitch clock, which is also a hitter clock, because they've got to be in and ready to hit. So they're both affected by it, and that's again just to get things moving a little bit, to not have so much dead time. You're naturally, if your pace is good, you're probably going to have quicker games. But the main focus was the pace. Last year, the World Series game, I don't remember which one, but it was like almost a 4-hour game. But it was a 5-0 Houston lead. Suddenly, I think the Phillies won at 6-5 or something. A lot of stuff was happening, and 4 hours didn't seem long at all. But when nothing's happening, or seemingly nothing's happening, 4 hours can be eternity. So it's not necessarily, we want quicker games. We want a faster pace. We want things happening in baseball, and it's you got to remember, Tyler, all these were vetted in the minor leagues. All of these rules, they didn't just come up with them and say, "Oh, let's just do this." They've been toying with them, tinkering with them in the minor leagues, and they've been effective. They've done what they are hoping it would do, and that's exactly what we're seeing so far. in spring training. There's been, steal attempts are way up, game times are down, but the pace is things are happening, and that's what they want. And so I think these are good changes. You got to remember that any player that was in the minor leagues the last few years that are now on a big league roster, they played with these rules. These are not brand new rules like, oh my gosh, I've never heard of this before. The only people that haven't played with these are veteran players that haven't been in the minor leagues in the last few years. Eventually, everyone's, eventually, I think none of these are going to be controversial because we'll be used to them. People will be, they may not like them, but they'll be used to them and they'll understand them, and the game will go on. Right now, there's an adjustment period, and pitchers are frustrated when they get called, for a pitch violation on the clock, or a hitter, and fans are up in arms. Oh my goodness, how can you end a game on a strikeout, because he wasn't ready? Well, because that's the rule. And so you either adjust or get called. I mean, it's really that simple. So they'll adjust, they'll get used to it. The games start meaning something here in a couple of days. And you'll still have some controversy, and you're still going to have some adjustments, but I really think by, as we steamroll into May and especially June, it's I don't think it's going to be a topic at all, or very rarely when maybe we'll have a violation here and there, but I think it'll probably be pretty smooth.
Is there any rule out of all of these three that you would personally change after they've adapted them, or is there any rule that you would like to add to the major leagues, whether that's for the purpose to speed up the game or just make it more engaging?
Uh, you know, Offhand, no. I mean, right now, you know, like I was talking about adjustments. I won't be. It wouldn't surprise me if the commissioner's office tweaked the new rules that we have now. Maybe give a little more leeway when the catcher is on base on the last out to get his gear on or something. And maybe have some understanding of that clock can be a very, right now, even it's up to the umpire can see that if a guy hits a double and now the bat boy runs out to get the gear from the runner and he's a little bit late, but the clock starts when it starts. The umpire says, okay, that wasn't fair. This guy's still getting his gear, blah blah blah. So he'll stop the clock and then start it again or whatever. He has that discretion now to do that. So let's see these things. Let's give them some time. Let's see whatever tweaks that the MLB might do. And let them play out, and we can address stuff if it's just not working. But again, these have been vetted in the minor leagues. I'm not saying the minor leagues are like the big leagues, but everything that happened in the minor leagues has happened so far in spring training, and so they're working exactly the way they thought they would. And so I think we're on a good path there. As far as rules that we don't have that I would like to see, well, you can't yell at umpires. How about that? That's a good rule. So,
that would be a pretty cool rule.
no,
Yeah.
actually, once in a while we need to be yelled at just to make sure they're awake over there, right? No, but right now, I'm pretty happy with these adjustments that they've made, and I think they're going to be a positive thing for the game.
Yeah, I really think that these changes are good. I mean, I feel like deep baseball fans at heart are kind of like, why are you changing our game? But when you think of it in the long run, people have viewed baseball as kind of like falling off compared to other sports on the rise. So I really feel like you had a very good point with the short attention span. It's not just cutting down the time; it's just like the action compared to the time of the game. Yeah,
exactly. The pace, things are happening. When things are happening, a long game doesn't seem long, right? You have exciting plays both ways. Have lead changes, or but when it's just a slow pace of really not much happening, that's when it bears down. There's been change in other sports. I remember I like hockey, but I don't have a team in Portland or a NHL team. So I don't go to a lot of games. But I remember when they did away with the overtime, where we have a short overtime, what is it, 4-on-4, and then they have a shootout or whatever, and people just heads explode. Some people did. But after a year or two of doing that, I think a lot of people adapted and said, that's not a bad deal, and it's it's not a bad thing. You're correct. Lifelong baseball fans that understand the intricacies of baseball and the strategies and all that stuff, This probably is disappointing to them, and I understand that. But baseball, like anything else, is competing with your attention, competing with the entertainment dollar and the sports dollar and everything else. They're trying to cultivate the younger generations, and I hate to say that word, younger generations, but younger fans. They need to cultivate younger fans into baseball, like the older fans are so devoted to it. And home runs and strikeouts and no action isn't going to do it. So, thus the changes.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see the changes. I mean, even just watching some spring training, getting used to the new rules. Like it was one of like the first spring training games. I think the game was like 2 hours and 20 minutes. And then yeah, it was within the first week. I totally forget the score, but it might have been like a double digit score on both sides, and the game was like 2 hours and 40 minutes,
Yeah.
which shows there can that just the action that can be compact in that time without drastically changing anything is very doable.
Right. And I was just looking at game times in spring training, and you're exactly right. I saw games that were 8-6 with combined 17 hits or something, 220 or 240. 244. That same game would have been a 320, or something like that. And so, and again, it's a mindset. Once these guys get adjusted to it, like I said, guys that have been playing in the minor leagues in the last couple of years that are on a big league roster now, they again, this is not new stuff. They were playing under these rules, so they get it. They may not like it, but they get it, and they make the adjustments. It's the big league guys, it's the big names that need to adjust. And in 2002 or three, there was a tweak of the definition of a strike, and it made it to more of a realistic strike zone. I remember it used to be the top of the zone was at the letters or at the shoulders. That wasn't realistic, not in this day and age. So they tweaked the definition to where it's the midpoint between the waist and the shoulders, which made a lot more sense, right? And they tweaked the bottom, the hollow of the knee, whatever. But and as umpires, we had gotten way wide as the strike zone evolved. I look at old games that I worked, other guys worked back in the '90s. My goodness, we're calling pitches off the plate all the time, and consistently. We were consistent, but amazingly, there wasn't a whole heck of a lot of complaining either, because that's how the game had evolved. It wasn't the strike zone. It wasn't the book strike zone. So they tweaked the strike zone. They got us back working more of a legitimate book strike zone. So there was a lot of adjustment in that. It was 2002 or three. Pitchers like Greg Maddox used to, dine on that outside, way outside corner, so to speak. Wasn't getting that anymore. He had to adjust. Hitters weren't used to pitches. We weren't calling strikes anything very much above the belt. Basically, we started calling that higher pitch that was at that midpoint. They didn't like that. They had to adjust. So the hitters had to adjust. Pitchers had to adjust. Umpires had to adjust. And it was, it was spring training. It was a couple of months of that season where there was a lot of bitching and moaning and screaming and yelling and ejections and whatever. But everybody eventually figured out this is now the game. This is now the strike zone. And the game was better for it after we all kind of got over that adjustment. But it's natural to have pushback when you're a veteran guy is used to his thing, and so you just need to. I was able to do it. When that happened, I was already in my close to my 20th year, or 17, 18 years of plus the minor leagues. So I had a strike zone that I was used to calling. Guess what? I had to adjust too. So you can teach an old dog new tricks. It just it takes a little while, but they'll get there. And I think it's going to be good for the game.
Yeah, for adjusting, I'm really interested to see pitchers. I mean, first ones that come to mind: Nestor Cortez, Johnny Cueto, with those just kind of funky windups that I will say it did make them special. But I mean, they could maybe still get that windup in time. But with the new pitch clock, I mean, 15 seconds or 20 if a runner's on, it'd be interesting to see kind of a more pitch from the stretch type windup, even when no one is on.
Yeah, and the clock is. I think I'm correct on this. You have to start your motion before the clock's out. It's not like you have to have the pitch released by that time. So, what used to maybe take a pitcher an average of 7 seconds to do this. Now he's got to do it in 5, or whatever. So it's just, again, it's something. A lot of it's mental. A lot of it's just up here. It's repetition they've been doing. And again, I understand that people say, well, why should they have to change? I mean, they're big leaguers. Why should they have to? Well, things change. So they are big leaguers. They're very good at what they do, and I have no doubt that their talent and athleticism will allow them to make the adjustments that are needed.
So nearing the end of this interview, I want to talk a little bit about your book, if you don't mind, that you recently released. Would you mind talking to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I wasn't going to write a book. That was nothing I was intending on doing when I retired. There have been retired umpires who've written books. They're usually pretty humorous. Umpires have great stories. And some of the umpire books that were written before me have great stories, and some of it's true. But no, they're entertaining. But I just didn't want to do that. But I talking to Rob Nyer, who helped me write the book, and some other people, convinced me that, yeah, I do have the umpire stories after 37 years of professional baseball. It's hard not to. But I had my own personal story, which was unique and different from anybody else. As the first active male sports official in the Big Five sports to come out in 2014. And I did have a journey. I led a double life for the longest time. I actively tried to make sure baseball didn't find out who I was, because it would, put a damper on me getting to the big leagues. And once I was in the big leagues, I still didn't want that information out, because there'd be guys who wouldn't want to work with me. My first game in the Northwest League, my first professional game in the low minor leagues in 1981, was literally 2 weeks after the first reported mysterious cancers affecting young men in San Francisco and New York, which we of course now know it was the beginning of the AIDS epidemic in the 80s. So I not only didn't want people to know that I was gay, because my promotion of trying to get to the big leagues would be severely hampered if they did. Now I certainly didn't want anybody to know, because the stigma with HIV and the AIDS epidemic, there would be guys that wouldn't even want to work with me. They'd be afraid to, share a hand towel with me in the locker room, for crying out loud, because people didn't know how what was going on for a long time. So it was a different time, and it was a time that I certainly did lead a double life, and I write about that, and I went full circle from actively hoping that no one ever found out, and having this double life, to actually coming out and all of that took place. So the book is about my a ton of great stories, both minor league and major league, but also the stories and the journey that I had personally. And it came out last May. I did the audio book. I narrated that. I finished that right before Christmas. That came out on February 28th, so that's out also. And I'm very proud of it. I'm very excited about it. It's gotten great reviews. The feedback I've had from the book has been outstanding. So you can go to umpiredalescott.com, which is my website that has information on where you can get the book or the audio book, or you can just go to Amazon, Audible, Barnes and Noble, all the big boys. You can order it, or some of them have it in stock, and check it out. But I'm excited about it, and like I said, I'm very gratified and happy that the feedback that I've gotten has been so positive.
It's just really an incredible story, and I'm glad you're getting good feedback. I mean, just from I feel like sports fans in the world, especially baseball, is just such positive people that can give such great feedback. And I'm really like inspired that you're willing to share that story, especially put it into writing, distribute it all around the world. I actually did recently. I don't have it yet. I went on Amazon, ordered a copy myself, so I have not read it yet, but I will.
Very nice. Well, you'll
Okay.
have to have me on after you've read it, and I would be thrilled to hear. Give me a book report.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
more
No, of
more
course.
homework, right?
Of course. I mean, that could be my own little personal assignment, but no, that would just be really cool. I mean, just talking with you today, hearing some of your stories, and knowing that there are like tons of more stories that I can read through your book, I'm really excited. But that's all I got today. Is there any last things that you'd like to talk about before we close it out?
No, I'm excited that the season's about to start. I'm myself and Brian Gorman and possibly more. We're going to be the rules analysts for the Apple streaming games on Friday nights this season, and also the MLB Network spotlight game or showcase game that they have usually on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, depending of the week and what game they pick out. But so I'm looking forward to doing that. I'll be doing that right from here, or or my little studio in Palm Springs if I'm down there. So that's going to be fun and something different for me. But yeah, just excited that the season's about ready to begin, and now I don't know about you, but hopefully the weather will start showing a little baseball weather, because it's been cold and wet and miserable out here in Portland.
Yeah, it's been pretty, it seems like worldwide it's been kind of underwhelming, but it hit
Yeah,
60 today. So I do, as you mentioned, I got my white t-shirt on, hit 60, feels like summer after
right.
we're in late March and it's like 40s and cloudy every day. But looking forward to the MLB season. I got my MLB TV package, watch any game when
There
I
you
want.
go.
I will find myself on the couch a lot, but I'll also go out to the games this summer. Definitely going.
Well, you'll have more time to do stuff because the games are going to be shorter, and
There you
and
go.
the
There
and
you
the
go.
pace is going to be going good. So yeah, I'm looking forward to how all of this plays out. And like I said, Tyler, I think that we get into June, July, whatever. I don't think there'll be a lot of discussion about these rules. Sure, you're going to have a violation here and there, and you always have controversy somewhere. And of course, when we get into September, October, that'll be magnified if it happens. But guys are going to make the adjustments. They're going to understand it. They may not like the rule, but they're going to understand how it's called, what what it's there for, and they'll make the adjustments.